Hello, boys and girls. Mr. Pals here. So nice to see you. Got a great one today. Helen Keller, an amazing person. Chapter 1 Illness. Helen was a writer and a speaker. She was a friend of presidents. Helen Keller was deaf and blind. Still, she was one of the greatest women of her time. Helen Keller was born on June 27th, 1880. She was born in a small town in Alabama. She was a beautiful baby. And she was smart. At 6 months old, she began talking. On her first birthday, she began walking. Wow, intelligent kid. But then, a few months before her second birthday, Helen became ill. The doctor thought she would die. Helen lived, but she lost her sight and hearing. After that, the world for her was dark and silent. From darkness into light, Helen did not hear people speak, so she did not learn new words. Soon she forgot the few words she already knew. Helen had her own way of talking. When she pushed someone away, she meant go. When she pulled someone, she meant come. When Helen pretended to put on eyeglasses, she meant father. Helen had about 60 such signs. Still, there were many things she wanted to say but could not. Sometimes Helen touched people's lips. When their lips moved, she knew they were talking, but she didn't know what they were saying. Helen moved her lips. She waved her hands, but she still knew she wasn't speaking. This made me so angry, Helen wrote later, that I kicked and screamed. Her parents took her to doctors, but nothing could be done to help Helen see and hear. Next, the Kellers looked for a teacher for Helen. They went to Washington, D.C., to Alexander Graham Bell. He had invented the telephone. Dr. Bell had once been a teacher in a school for the deaf. He understood my signs, Helen wrote later. I knew it and loved him at once. Dr. Bell helped find a teacher for Helen. That living word. The most important day of my life, Helen wrote later, is the one which my teacher, Anne Mansfield Sullivan, came to me. The day was March 3rd, 1887. Helen was 6 years old. For Helen's first lesson, Anne used a finger alphabet. She spelled D-O-L-L in Helen's hand. Then she gave Helen a doll. For Helen, this was a game. She did not know that what was spelled in her hand was a doll. She did not know that everything had a name. One day, while taking a walk, Anne and Helen came to a water pump. Anne put one of Helen's hands in the water. In Helen's other hand, Anne spelled W-A-T-E-R. Suddenly, Helen knew what Anne was trying to teach her. Everything has a name. Helen learned many new words that day. That night, for the first time, Helen Keller logged for a new day to come. Hope and love. Helen learned hundreds, then thousands of words. She learned to talk and hear with her hands. She learned to read by feeling tiny bumps on papers. That kind of writing for the blind is called Braille. When Helen was 10, she learned to speak. She could not hear the sounds she or others made. She never learned to speak clearly. In 1900, Helen went to Radcliffe College. Anne Sullivan sat next to her. She spelled in Helen's hand what was said in the class. When Helen was in college, she wrote the story of my life. People all the world read it. Later, Helen wrote other books. She went across the United States. 1,000 people came to hear her speak. She went to Europe and Japan too. Helen marched for women's rights. She wrote about the many needs of working people and the poor. During and after the Second World War, Helen visited soldiers, made blind and deaf in the war. Helen gave them hope that they too would live full and happy lives. Helen Keller said she was happy because she had good friends and interesting work to do. In 1964, for her good work, President Lyndon Johnson gave her the President Medal of Freedom. Wow. Helen Keller died on June 1st, 1968. People everywhere cried for her. A world of people she could not see and could not hear had loved her, and Helen Keller had loved them. Hope you enjoyed it, boys and girls. See you soon.